Let's go to running back. Who are your top five?
So I have Josh Jacobs number one. And last week I chickened out at the very end and I lowered him to like RB6 or RB8 because he was the
Yeah,
afternoon
he was.
game. We didn't know.
I think he was questionable, right, with an illness
Yeah,
or
well,
something.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
just like even if he does play, he might be limited. So I'm like, okay. I had him RB1 all week, and then I lowered him to RB6 or 8, and he had one of the best performances of the season. It sounds like he might not even practice this week, but I'm not falling for it again. Josh Jacobs is my RB1. I'm sticking to it. And then I have Austin Eckler, Ramondre Stevenson, Nick Chubb, and Derrick Henry.
Wait, you have Ramondre where? 4?
3.
Ooh, is Damian Harris is he out? Like
He's
out?
Yeah, he's not expected to play, so
Okay.
I would say he's doubtful. But he's not ruled out yet. But for my projections, I have zeroed him out.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I still have him getting like a little bit of work. Like I have Ramondre at RB8. But yeah, he'll probably bump up a little higher if
Yeah.
once I do that. I have Jacobs, Chubb, Henry, Eckler, and Kenneth Walker the third in
Nice.
fifth. Who you high on?
So I'm high on Kyron Williams this week. He opens up as RB32. I didn't get to do this last week because we found out the Darrell Henderson news on our second pod. So this is our first chance to really talk about him. But I've been banging the table for him for weeks now before the Henderson news. Just the Rams season, it's a disaster. They're probably looking ahead towards next year, and he could be their starting running back next year. So they want to see what they have. Very talented back out of Notre Dame. He went in the 5th round, but he was honestly one of the better pass catching backs. Definitely gives me like Austin Eckler vibes, and he looked the part this week. I mentioned Cam Akers is probably going to start the game, but the game would get out of hand, and Kyron Williams eventually took over. So didn't do much on the ground, ran the ball 11 times for 35 yards, and caught 3 passes for 25 yards. But he ran around on 70% of Bryce Perkins' dropbacks. Unfortunately, a lot of those turned into scrambles. So we're gonna have that problem as long as Bryce Perkins is under center. It's gonna cap Kyron's pass catching upside a bit. So he will get a boost if John Wolford were able to return this week, or eventually Matt Stafford. Kyron has RB2 upside, so I'm going to be high on him over the consensus as much as possible. So this week, he's more of an RB3 flex option against Seahawks. But again, if Wolford, it looks like if he's going to start, he could move up into RB2 territory for me.
Yeah, yeah, it's this Ram passing game is so bad, but yeah, I think the fact that Williams kind of got the 11 carries, because he was always getting the routes, but the fact that he got the 11 carries, I think, is important because they dropped Henderson and Akers. They've kind of had issues with McVay had issues with all year. So he looks like he's trending up.
Yeah, and the other guy I like is Gus Edwards. He against the Broncos, he opens up as my RB27. He returned to action after a 2-game absence, plus they had the bye. Seems like they just wanted to make sure he was 100% before they had him return this time. So he returned to a full, workhorse kind of role where he ran 16 times for 52 yards and a touchdown against the Jags. But he could be in for an even bigger workload this week against the Broncos. Similar to a lot of the reasons you like Deontay Foreman last week. Denver's unable to put up points. So the Ravens should be able to lean on the run all game. And, the Broncos defense is vulnerable when it comes to opposing running backs. So this just sets up as a perfect game script for Gus. Never going to get much out of him in the passing game. So he needs these kind of game scripts to work. But, he's a high-end RB3 flex option this week. And I think after last week, he got through the game fully healthy. I think we can finally trust him in our lineups now.
The only thing is JK might return this week, though.
Oh, he might return this week?
Well, he was designated, but they're saying like they're hopeful that he returns. But yeah, that would I don't know how they would kind of split that work if he's back. But yeah, he was designated to return, so we'll see how that shapes up. But yeah, 76% of the design runs last week. So
yeah, if anything, JK would just like inherit the full Drake and Justice Hill role. I'm assuming they would want to limit Dobbins out of the gate, but certainly if he returns this week, I will be updating my projections. As of now, I have him not returning. So that's why Gus is so high. But again, this is something we have to deal with our early Tuesday, but later in the week, check our updated rankings if Dobbins does return.
Yes, sir. I am high on Kyron as well. Love that call. Also Damian Pierce, he had a really bad game against Miami. That's a tough run defense. It's one of the best. They're top 4 in early down rush success rate. Now they face Cleveland, and I think Cleveland is going to be a much easier matchup. Both of the running backs in that game should just go off. But I'm gonna go back on Damian Pierce here because this Browns defense has been allowing 116.3 yards per game to opposing running backs. That's 6th most in the league. And I think Pierce, gets back to what he was doing earlier this year against this number 31 defense in run DVOA. So like Pierce, and also Latavius Murray, I'm higher on than consensus. I have him RB20 and he's RB29 in consensus.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, he had 76% of the backfield carries last week, and then 65 season high 65% of the route. So there's really nobody else, and they just waived their 3rd string running back Zigbo. So they really don't have much in that backfield. So I think he's it's not gonna be pretty, but I mean that's really the only thing Denver can do at this point. They can't throw the ball. So they gotta just kind of hand it to Murray, dump it off to Murray, screen it to Murray, whatever you can. So it might take 25 touches, but I could see him getting 100 yards. Probably no touchdown, but
right. Yeah, no, I love that. I thought I was high on him at RB 23, so you're higher than me. I didn't realize they cut Zigbo.
Yeah.
And Mac barely factored in. I mean, this is fully Murray's backfield. And they were able to get it in the red zone last week off of one of his 60-yard runs or something like that. And then Wilson screwed it up or something. But yeah, the only way they can move the ball right now is through Murray. So he is their offense right now, unfortunately. But yeah, he's definitely like a low end to mid range RB2 right now.
Yeah, just all volume. It's all volume. Yeah. But all right, let's go with who you want.
So I'm low on Jeffrey Wilson. He's my RB26 to open the week. The consensus is RB14. I'm assuming, people are still having Raheem Mostert out, which is fair. But I have Mostert returning to at least a limited role. It's going to be a revenge game for both of these backs. But a lot of the reasons I'm low on Wilson are similar to what I said about Tua is, their team total is super low this week. Again, it's 21.5. 21st highest team total this week. And for a running back like Wilson, who really just banks on touchdowns for his, fantasy value, that's a massive blow, especially coming off cupcake matchup last week against Texans, where he really struggled. He only carried the ball 13 times for 39 yards, was able to get a touchdown to kind of salvage his day. He did leave briefly for an injury, but either way, he was super inefficient against, the worst defense in football. So again, this is a tougher matchup against 49ers, low team total. So I don't know how we should be ranking him, as a high end RB2. So he's all the way down to RB26 for me. If Mostert is held out again this week, he might creep back up into that mid-range RB2, but I'm tempering my expectations this week for him. And then Cam Akers, RB41. This is, tied to me being high on Kyren Williams. It's always bizarre just seeing people thinking that Cam Akers is going to be a thing at some point in the season. It's not. Stop it. It's never going to happen. He requires a positive game script to have value. So, he started the game last week, but they inevitably got behind big. That's going to be the Rams the rest of the season. So this, he's not going to really have a positive game script to go on the rest of the season. So, I don't know what we're getting out of him right now. So, if you have him, please do not start him. It's going to require, Stafford coming back and Kyren to get injured at this point for Akers to become, top 30 back. So again, I am super low on Akers as always, and pretty high on Kyren Williams. So this is kind of how I'm viewing the Rams backfield going forward.
Yeah. The issue with Akers is that, I think some people look at the carries or maybe the overall touches, but he's only running a route between 8 and 19% of the time. Like, he hasn't hit 20% since week what? 4. Since week 4.
Well, the thing is, when he does run a route, they don't even target him.
Right. Yeah. So,
which is another recipe to get an actual reception.
And then, he's playing on the Rams, so the touchdown odds aren't there. So you're not really getting receptions, low touchdown probabilities. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm exactly at RB 41 for Cam Akers as well. I am low on Saquon Barkley again this week. Talked about it last week. He just doesn't look right. Ever since that shoulder injury, he's just not the same explosive back. And now he's going against this top 5 Washington run defense. So he's the consensus RB9. So they have lowered him, but I'm still lower. I'm at RB 13 against Washington. And it's just, I just project him to be pretty inefficient, not much more than 4 yards per carry. And it's just a low, divisional game late in the year. The total's 40.5. The Giants are underdogs. So, this is just not a great matchup. And his receiving usage has been ticking downward pretty much ever since that shoulder injury, but especially since the bye, just about under 60% route participation, when for the season, his median's closer to 70%. So, he's not getting the receiving usage that he was earlier in the year. Tough matchup, low team total. Not really loving Saquon this week.
Yeah, that was a great call on Saquon last week to fade him, obviously, or have him low. That I was driving to Thanksgiving dinner, and I was trying to catch up on my phone, and I saw like the last 10 plays from the Giants, and it was Gary Brightwell. Brightwell. I was like, did Saquon get hurt or something? What the hell happened? Nope, just wanted to get Brightwell involved. So that just goes to show he's had such a massive workload this year. That they are trying to get these other guys involved. They've been trying to get Breeden involved all year, but once they're getting Brightwell involved, that's not good, because Barkley does need that massive volume to have value. So I'm with you on that. I'm starting to lower his, not only his just volume, but his efficiency as well. So he's still borderline RB1, but not like the beginning of the year when we were considering him as like a top 3 back. Things have changed a ton since then.
Yeah, man, it's ugly for Saquon. And it's funny because when they were giving all those touches to Brightwell, Saquon was on the field as a decoy. So I just feel like
he was on the field.
Yeah. So what's going on is like defenses are really just stacking up to take him away. And we've talked about it. The Giants' passing game is getting more and more depleted as the year goes on. No Wan'Dale Robinson. They lost Shepard early in the year, so it's really just defense is just loading up on Saquon, and they're trying to find other ways to manufacture offense. But yeah, it's been tough. All right, let's see, what do we want to do for the prop? Let's go with Kyren Williams for the prop. Let's go total scrimmage yards for Kyren. Go 55.5.
Well, I had it at 54. Who do you have starting quarterback this week? Is it full Perkins, or do you have?
I have Perkins for now. Yeah.
Okay.
But
same.
I mean, the yardage doesn't really differ too much with.
I'll
Perkins.
I'll go over. I'll go over that because I think if Wolford's under center, that is way less scrambling and way more just dump offs to Kyren, right? So.
Yeah, I guess it would be good for another like 10-15 yards, couple of
yeah. So that's I'm 1 yard lower than you, but I'm just factoring in the chances of Wolford being under center this week. So I like the upside on this prop.